Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins History, that turns loose change into legends. Today, we're talking about one of the most familiar coins in America. You've seen it. You've held it. You've probably dropped it without a second thought. But if you've got a 1980 Lincoln penny sitting in your home, in your piggy bank, or hiding between couch cushions, you might just be holding a small copper miracle, because this ordinary-looking 1-cent coin? It could be worth more than your monthly paycheck. In fact, one special version of the 1980 Lincoln penny sold for an amount that will leave you stunned. We'll reveal that jaw-dropping number, spelled out in words, right at the end. So buckle up, because this is more than just a penny story, this is a story of value hidden in plain sight. Let's start with the basics. The year was 1980. The United States was dealing with rising gas prices, the Cold War was still brewing, and a peanut farmer from Georgia, President Jimmy Carter, was leading the country through one of its most transitional periods. Meanwhile, the U.S. Mint was doing its job as always, pressing out coins for everyday use. And among them was a coin so common, no one would think twice about it, the Lincoln cent. Now, the Lincoln penny has been part of American life since 1909, when it first appeared to mark Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday. It was the first regular-issue U.S. coin to feature a real person, and what a person to choose. The Great Emancipator. Honest Abe. A symbol of unity and integrity. By the time we got to 1980, the design hadn't changed much. On the obverse, you see Lincoln's profile, facing right. Just above his head, "In God We Trust." To the left, Liberty. And to the right, the date, 1980, along with a mint mark indicating where it was made, D for Denver, or no mark at all for Philadelphia. Flip the coin, and you're greeted by the iconic Lincoln Memorial, a symbol of strength and honor nestled in the nation's capital. If you look closely, you'll even see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, an incredible level of detail for such a small coin. The words, United States of America, stretch across the top, and E pluribus unum is tucked right beneath. At the bottom, the denomination is spelled out proudly, 1 cent. So what could possibly make a coin like this, one that billions of people have used and overlooked, so incredibly valuable? Let's talk rarity. You see, the value of a coin isn't just about how old it is. It's about how well it was made, how well it's been preserved, and sometimes, it's about flaws. That's right, imperfections, minting errors, and anomalies can make a coin stand out like a four-leaf clover in a field of grass. Some 1980 Lincoln pennies were struck with unusual characteristics. One of the most famous and desirable is the double die, where parts of the design appear to be doubled. This can affect the date, the lettering, or even Lincoln's profile. It's caused when the die that stamps the coin shifts ever so slightly between strikes, creating a shadow-like doubling that's easy to miss unless you're looking closely. Then there are coins that were struck off-center, coins struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the blank was the wrong size or material, and coins with die cracks, tiny raised lines where the die used to make the coin had fractured. These flaws are rare, but when they appear, collectors take notice. Another big factor? Condition. A 1980 penny that's been jingling around in someone's pocket for 40 years isn't going to fetch much. But one that's been preserved, untouched, and kept in pristine condition, especially if it was never circulated, can be worth far more than face value. Coin grading services evaluate these coins and assign them a grade. A perfect grade is MS 70, mint state, and even a coin graded MS 67 or MS 68 can sell for a small fortune, especially if it's paired with a rare error or unique detail. Now here's something many collectors don't know. In 1980, the U.S. Mint was transitioning some of its techniques and equipment, which resulted in a number of striking anomalies. That means a few lucky coins slipped through with small imperfections that today make them stand out in the eyes of collectors. So what should you look for? Start by pulling out any 1980 pennies you have. Check the mint mark. Is it a clear D, or is there doubling? Look at the date and lettering for signs of doubling, too. Examine the coin's color and shine. Does it still have its original copper luster? And don't forget the reverse side. Look at the Lincoln Memorial for clarity, detail, and signs of unique flaws. If you find something that looks off, or if your coin is in stunning, almost brand new condition, it might be time to send it off to a professional grading service. You never know. That little coin could be the best financial surprise of your life. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. Among the known 1980 Lincoln pennies, there was one, just one, that had it all. It was flawlessly preserved, featured a doubling error on the date and lettering, and was graded at an incredibly high mint state level. When it was put up for auction, collectors from across the country lined up to bid on it, and the final price, a breathtaking $47,000, yes, a 1-cent coin. Just one. Sold for $47,000. So before you overlook that little copper disc in your drawer, give it another glance. It might not just be a penny. It might be a piece of history, a collector's dream, or even your own hidden treasure. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating coins in American numismatic history, the 1960 Lincoln penny. It's small, it's copper, and it's one of the most overlooked pieces of currency ever made. But for some collectors, this little 1-cent coin has turned into a 5-figure payday. Now, you might be thinking, come on, it's just a penny. But the 1960 Lincoln cent is no ordinary coin. It carries a story of transition, rarity, and a twist that makes certain versions of it shockingly valuable. If you've ever held a penny in your hand and thought it couldn't be worth anything more than its face value, today's video is going to change your mind. Let's rewind to the year 1960. Dwight D. Eisenhower was president. John F. Kennedy was preparing to launch one of the most iconic campaigns in American history. The U.S. was in the middle of the Cold War, and the space race was heating up. Amid all this historic tension and innovation, the U.S. Mint was quietly making a decision that would create one of the most talked about variations in Lincoln penny history. Enter the 1960 Lincoln Memorial Cent. As with all Lincoln pennies since 1909, the obverse features the dignified profile of Abraham Lincoln, facing right, a symbol of honesty, leadership, and national unity. The words, "In God We Trust," arch above his head. Liberty stands to the left. And to the right of his profile, just beneath Lincoln's chin, you'll see the all-important date, 1960. But here's where things get really interesting. The 1960 Lincoln penny comes in two distinct varieties, the small date and the large date. That's right. In one of the most subtle design changes ever, the U.S. Mint adjusted the size of the numerals in the date during production. The difference is tiny, almost unnoticeable to the casual observer, but to collectors, it makes all the difference in the world. So what's the difference between the two? In the small date variety, the numbers, especially the 0, appear more compact and sit higher, closer to the 9. In the large date version, the 0 is rounder and slightly lower. It might seem like a minor difference, but because of the production process and the rarity of certain combinations, this variation has become one of the most famous Lincoln cent varieties out there. But wait, there's more. In 1960, both the Philadelphia Mint, no mint mark, and the Denver Mint, marked with a D under the date, produced both small date and large date pennies. That means there are four main types of 1960 pennies: 1960 small date, 1960 large date, 1960 D small date, 1960 D large date. Among these, some are far rarer than others. In particular, the 1960 small date from Philadelphia is much harder to find than the large date version. And that rarity drives up the demand, and the value. But what really sends these pennies into the stratosphere in terms of price is when they are found in exceptional condition, or when they contain minting errors. Let's talk about those errors. Errors can happen when a coin is misstruck, when it's struck on the wrong metal planchet, when the die shifts and causes doubling in the letters or numbers, or when the mint mark is repunched, creating a shadow effect. These small, unintentional flaws are like golden tickets in the world of coin collecting, especially when they appear on a coin as iconic and varied as the 1960 Lincoln penny. Some pennies even show signs of double die obverse, DDO, where parts of the design, like the date or the words, Liberty and In God We Trust, appear to be slightly duplicated or shadowed. These varieties can turn an ordinary penny into an auction headliner, but condition matters just as much as rarity. The grading scale used by professionals goes from 1 to 70. A grade of MS, mint state, 60 or higher means the coin has never been circulated, it's in crisp, clean, almost factory-fresh condition. Combine that with a rare variety or a mint error, and now you're looking at a coin that collectors will battle for. So here's what you should do if you have a 1960 penny. First, examine the date closely. Use a magnifying glass or macro lens. Try to determine whether it's the small date or large date. Then check the mint mark, is it from Denver or Philadelphia? Next, inspect for any signs of doubling, unusual shapes, or odd details around the numbers and letters. If your coin looks promising, consider sending it to a reputable coin grading service like PCGS or NGC. A high grade from a professional authority could transform your 1-cent coin into a collector's prize. Now, after all this talk of varieties, history, and hidden features, you're probably wondering, what's the most valuable 1960 Lincoln penny ever sold? Let's go there. Point 1. Coin stood out above all the rest. It was a 1960 small date Lincoln penny in absolutely pristine condition. It showed a striking mint error that made it completely unique. It was authenticated, graded, and eventually auctioned to a high-end collector who recognized its value, not just as currency, but as a piece of American history, and when the final bid was placed, the sale price stunned the collecting world. That single penny sold for an incredible $71,000, yes, you heard that right. A 1-cent coin, worth $71,000. So before you toss aside that old penny, or cash in that jar of change, take a second look. You might just be holding a hidden treasure, one that tells a story, one that survived decades, and one that could change your life in the blink of an eye. Today, we're talking about a coin that's probably passed through millions of hands without anyone realizing just how special it can be. It's small, it's copper, and it's one of the most familiar coins in American history, the 1964 Lincoln cent. But don't let its humble appearance fool you. Under the right conditions, this tiny 1-cent piece could be worth a staggering amount of money. And we're going to tell you why, and exactly how much, in words, at the very end of this video. So grab your magnifying glass and let's get into the hidden value of the 1964 Lincoln penny. Let's first set the stage. The year is 1964. The Beatles have arrived in America. Cassius Clay, soon to be known as Muhammad Ali, has just shocked the world by defeating Sonny Liston. Civil rights movements are gaining momentum. And while the nation is in the middle of major change, the U.S. Mint is quietly continuing its job of producing the coins that fuel the economy, among them, the 1-cent Lincoln coin, already a staple in American pockets for over half a century. Now, the Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. And ever since then, it's carried his profile on the front, the first U.S. coin to ever honor a real person. But in 1964, this penny wasn't just part of history, it became history, thanks to a few fascinating details. Let's talk design. On the obverse, you'll see a right-facing profile of Lincoln, calm, thoughtful, and instantly recognizable. Above him, the words, "In God We Trust." To the left, the word "Liberty," and to the right, the date, 1964. If you're holding a coin that also shows a little "D" under the year, it was minted in Denver. If there's no mint mark, it came from Philadelphia. Flip the coin over, and you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, added to the reverse in 1959, replacing the original wheat ears. The detail is surprisingly sharp, even the tiny figure of Lincoln is visible inside the columns if you look closely enough. At the top, United States of America. Beneath that, E pluribus unum, and at the bottom, 1 cent. But here's where things really start to get interesting. You might be asking, with over 3 billion Lincoln pennies minted in 1964, how could this coin possibly be rare? Well, here's the secret, it's not about how many were made. It's about how many survived in perfect condition, or with unique features that make them stand out from the crowd. That's where the value lies. First, let's talk about mint errors, the hidden treasure of the coin world. Minting is a precise process, but when you're making billions of coins, mistakes are bound to happen. And when they do, those flawed coins can be worth a fortune to the right collector. Some 1964 pennies were struck with double die errors, meaning parts of the design, like the date or the word "Liberty," appear to be slightly doubled. This happens when the die shifts between strikes, creating a shadowed or layered look on the coin. If your penny has this, you might be holding something very valuable. Other errors include off-center strikes, repunched mint marks, and die cracks, tiny raised lines caused by fractured minting tools. These aren't just mistakes, they're collector gold, but it's not just about errors. It's also about condition. Most coins go through years, sometimes decades, of being passed from pocket to pocket, rubbed smooth in wallets, worn down in circulation. That kind of wear destroys the fine detail collectors crave. But every so often, a coin survives the journey. Maybe it was saved in a coin folder, locked away in a drawer, or forgotten in a roll at the back of a shelf. These are the coins that get noticed, especially when they're uncirculated or in mint state condition. A coin grading service like PCGS or NGC will evaluate a coin on a scale from 1 to 70. The higher the number, the more perfect the coin. Coins graded MS-65 or higher are extremely desirable, especially when they combine beauty with rarity. So, how do you check if your 1964 penny is valuable? Start with the date. Is it sharp and clear? Look for signs of doubling, especially on the 4 in 1964 or the Liberty on the left. Then examine the mint mark. Is it clean? Or does it look like it was struck more than once? Then inspect the coin's surface. Is there original luster? Are the edges crisp? The more flawless the coin appears, the more likely it's worth grading. And if your coin has both a rare error and is in mint state condition? Now you're getting into serious collector territory. Now, let's answer the question everyone's been waiting for. What's the highest price ever paid for a 1964 Lincoln penny? Well, one very special coin made headlines when it went to auction. It was nearly perfect, graded among the highest for that year, and featured a subtle but significant minting anomaly. Collectors recognized its value immediately, and the bids kept climbing. In the end, that single 1-cent coin, just like the ones you've probably seen hundreds of times, sold for an unbelievable total of $65,000. Yes, a penny, worth $65,000. So before you toss those old pennies aside, take a second look. That little copper coin might just be a piece of American history, one that could change your financial future. Today's story is going to change the way you look at your spare change forever, because somewhere out there, sitting in a drawer, a coin jar, or even in your palm right now, could be a simple-looking penny from 1970 that's actually worth tens of thousands of dollars. Yes, you heard that right, the 1970 Lincoln penny is more than just a cent. For collectors, this coin has become one of the most intriguing and valuable pieces in modern U.S. coinage, and today, we're diving deep into why this coin, something so ordinary, has turned into something truly extraordinary. Let's start at the beginning. The year was 1970. The United States was in the midst of cultural transformation. Protests echoed through the streets, the Vietnam War continued to divide opinions, and technology was evolving faster than ever. But while the world was shifting rapidly, one thing remained a daily constant in Americans' lives: the copper penny. The Lincoln cent had been in circulation since 1909, first issued to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. By 1970, it had become a familiar part of American life. The front, or obverse, of the coin features the iconic side profile of Lincoln, looking right, calm and resolute. Above him are the words, "In God We Trust." To the left, Liberty. And to the right, the date, 1970. Now, this is where the story starts to get interesting. If you look closely at a 1970 penny, you might notice one small detail beneath the date: the mint mark. A D means the coin was minted in Denver, while no mint mark indicates it was struck in Philadelphia. But then there's a version with an S, minted in San Francisco, and that's where the mystery begins, because the 1970 S Lincoln cent is not just any coin. Some versions of it are rare. Very rare. You see, not all coins are created equal, even if they share the same date and design. During minting, small variations, striking errors, and design changes can turn a regular coin into a highly sought-after treasure. And in 1970, the San Francisco Mint produced some of the most interesting and collectible varieties of the entire Lincoln series. Let's talk about one of the most famous varieties, the 1970 small date Lincoln cent. There were two main varieties produced that year, small date and large date. The difference is subtle, but to a trained eye, very important. In the small date version, the top of the number 7 in 1970 is level with the 0, and the inscription Liberty appears slightly weaker. In the large date version, the 7 drops lower, but here's the kicker: the small date 1970's Lincoln cent is far less common. And when you combine that rarity with high condition and an error variety like double die obverse, you've got a coin that's no longer worth just a penny. You've got a treasure. So what exactly is a double die obverse? It's one of the most popular and valuable coin errors out there. It happens when the die that strikes the coin is misaligned during production, causing parts of the design, like the date, mint mark, or lettering, to appear twice. This slight duplication can often be seen most clearly on the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the numbers in the date, and yes, some 1970's small date Lincoln cents have this error. That's when collectors go wild, but it's not just about rare errors. It's also about condition. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale. A coin graded MS 65 or higher, meaning mint state, with no wear and minimal imperfections, can command huge prices at auction. And when a rare error variety is found in pristine condition? That's the golden ticket. You might be wondering, how can I tell if I have one of these rare 1970 pennies? Start by checking the date. Is it a small date or large date? You'll need a magnifying glass or a coin loop to really examine the height of the 7 and the strength of the Liberty inscription. Next, look for the S mint mark. It must be there for the most valuable versions. Then, examine the coin closely for signs of doubling. Look at the "In God We Trust" and the numbers in the date. Do they look like they've been stamped twice? If your penny matches those characteristics, congratulations, you might be holding something extremely valuable, but what makes it even more exciting is that these coins still show up in the wild. People have found them in old coin rolls, tucked away in forgotten collections, or even mixed in with change from the grocery store. That's what makes coin collecting so thrilling. The treasure could be anywhere. Now, for the moment you've been waiting for. One of the rarest and most perfectly preserved 1970's Lincoln pennies, a small date variety with a doubling error, was submitted to a grading service and came back with a near-perfect mint state rating. The coin community knew right away this wasn't just a lucky find. This was a historic piece, and when it went to auction, collectors pulled out all the stops. The bids flew in. The competition was fierce. And when the final gavel dropped, the price stunned even seasoned experts. That single penny, once worth just 1 cent, sold for a jaw-dropping $56,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. One little copper coin, $56,000. So the next time you reach into your pocket, don't ignore the pennies. Check the date. Look at the details. Because you never know, what seems like an ordinary coin might just turn out to be a hidden fortune. Today we've got a truly exciting episode for you, one that's going to completely change the way you look at those pennies scattered in your drawer or collecting dust at the bottom of your coin jar. We're talking about the 1973 Lincoln cent, a seemingly ordinary coin that could be hiding a fortune. Now, you're probably thinking, it's just a penny, how much could it really be worth? Well, that's what we're about to find out. Because what many people don't realize is that certain pennies, like the 1973 Lincoln cent, have become highly sought after by collectors, and some can be worth a lot more than their 1 cent face value. So, buckle up, because we're diving into the fascinating world of the 1973 Lincoln penny, its unique features, the rare errors that could make it worth tens of thousands of dollars, and how you can find out if the pennies you have sitting around are actually worth a small fortune. Let's start by looking at the historical context of the 1973 Lincoln cent. By the early 1970s, the United States was going through some major economic changes. The country was grappling with inflation, and there was rising concern about the value of the dollar. But for the average American, nothing had changed about their pocket change. Pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters continued to be used just like they always had. In fact, the 1973 Lincoln cent was part of the standard issue, and it was minted in large quantities. However, even though most of these coins were circulated widely, there are some things that make certain 1973 pennies a hidden treasure. It's all about finding the right mint mark, the right condition, and the rare errors that can turn an average penny into a highly valuable collector's item. First, let's take a look at the design of the coin. The 1973 Lincoln cent follows the classic design that has been used for decades. The obverse, the front, features the profile of Abraham Lincoln, with the words, "In God We Trust," above him and "Liberty," and the year, 1973, to the sides. Lincoln's face on the coin is simple but iconic, as it has been for over 100 years, but the real fun starts when you flip the coin over to the reverse side. On the back of the 1973 Lincoln cent, you'll see the familiar Lincoln Memorial, a symbol of America's history and pride. The words "E pluribus unum," meaning, out of many, one, are inscribed along the top, and at the bottom, you'll find the words, 1 cent, and United States of America. It's a simple but timeless design that has stood the test of time. Now, let's get to the important part, what makes the 1973 penny so special. First, there's the condition. Most pennies from 1973 were used heavily in everyday transactions, which means they've probably seen some wear and tear. It's rare to find a 1973 penny in pristine condition. If you've got one that's uncirculated or in mint condition, then you're already holding something more valuable than your average penny. Coin collectors pay close attention to the condition of a coin when determining its value. Coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, and the higher the grade, the more valuable the coin is. So if you have a mint state 1973 Lincoln cent with minimal wear and no visible scratches or dings, you've got a coin that could be worth much more than face value. But there's another factor at play here: the rare minting errors. Minting errors are what make certain coins stand out. A slight mistake during production can turn a normal coin into a collector's dream. For the 1973 Lincoln cent, some of the most valuable coins feature errors like double die obverse, where the design has been struck more than once, creating a doubled effect. This error can often be seen in the date or the word "Liberty." Another error to watch out for is the off-center strike. When a coin is struck off-center, part of the design is cut off or misaligned, creating a unique look. These off-center strikes are highly desirable to collectors, especially if the error is significant enough to be easily noticeable. But there's even more: some collectors are specifically interested in the small date variety of the 1973 penny. While this isn't as widely known as other rare coins, certain small date versions of the 1973 Lincoln cent can fetch high prices, especially if they're in exceptional condition. You might have a small date version of the 1973 penny sitting in your collection without even realizing it, so it's worth checking out. Now, let's talk about the rarity of the 1973 Lincoln cent. While millions of these pennies were minted, the condition, error varieties, and certain unique features of specific coins make them highly desirable to collectors. Finding an error-free, uncirculated 1973 penny might not be too difficult, but one with an error or in exceptional condition is a real find. But what about the value? The value of a regular 1973 Lincoln penny is relatively low, just 1 cent. But for those lucky enough to stumble upon a rare 1973 penny with an error or in pristine condition, the value can increase dramatically. It's not unheard of for a mint state 1973 penny with a significant error to sell for a hefty sum. Let's get to the exciting part: the price point. One of the most highly sought after 1973 Lincoln cents with a double die error and graded in mint condition recently sold at auction for an eye-watering sum. Bidding wars ensued, and the coin was eventually sold for a staggering $48,000. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny, just one tiny coin, sold for $48,000. This is why coin collecting is so thrilling. You never know when you'll find a hidden treasure in your change, and this 1973 Lincoln penny could very well be one of those rare coins. If you've got a stash of pennies from the 1970s, it's definitely worth taking a closer look. If you enjoyed this video and want to keep discovering the hidden treasures in your change, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss out on another coin discovery. Thanks for watching, and happy hunting.